Hello everyone, Time to Grind here, and today I wanted to talk about As Far as the Eye. And As Far as the Eye is a 4X strategy roguelike that is one of the most innovative and fresh ideas for a roguelike that I have seen in a long time. And before we get to the review, I do just want to let you guys know that I was given an early review copy of the game in order to make a review for you guys. I never let that influence my videos, I just want to stay as transparent as possible with you all. But either way, let's just jump into the review. So if you're watching my channel, you know that roguelikes and roguelites are one of my favorite genres of all time. And so one of my favorite things ever is when a game takes a pre-existing genre that I'm a fan of and turns it into a roguelike, especially if it really hasn't been done before. So Slay the Spire did that with deck builders, Spelunky did that with platformers, and now As Far as the Eye is doing that for 4X like turn-based resource management games like Civilization. So it's kind of like a roguelike version of Civ. And you might be wondering how a game pulls off a roguelike version of Civ. And so, in the game, you pick a tribe. You then get put into a world and you must settle your caravan on a good spot. And so apparently, like every 100 years or something in the lore, the entire Earth floods and it kind of resets the land. And so it's a tradition for all of the creatures of the world to migrate to a specific place in the center of the world that is protected from the floods. And so to do that, you will need resources to make your journey. So you look at this branching path map, similar to like the maps in Slay the Spire, and see where you want to go. And each new area you go requires a certain amount of resources to get there. So one path might be blocked until you get like 200 wood and 100 stone in order to repair a bridge. Or another path might be super cold, so you need like 250 wool and 100 of the default food in order to make it across. And since a flood is coming, you can't just take all the time in the world. You might have like 100 turns until the flood hits the area you're at, and so you have to make sure you get all the resources you need and move on to the next area before then. And I know what some of you may be thinking, timers in games can be super stressful and annoying, but it's not really that bad in this game. You normally have plenty of time to spare, and in my experience, I was losing my games because my people died because I didn't give them enough food or I didn't have enough resources to move on to the next area. It wasn't really me running out of time necessarily. So after you settle your caravan, you get a couple of pupils that you can tell to do different tasks. You can have them start gathering basic things like wood or food, and then they'll continuously gather it and bring it back to the caravan over and over and over until they deplete that tile, and if they deplete it, they'll immediately just try to, find another similar tile to do the same thing for. You can also build more complicated buildings that allow you to do more complicated things, like let your pupils do things like fish, hunt, bake, collect spices, make medicine. You can build movable buildings that will follow you from area to area, like markets that allow you to trade resources, a camp that allows you to have more pupils, a forge that allows you to upgrade your other buildings, and more and more. And so for each area, you're pretty much going to be trying to collect all the resources you need to move on to the next area. So say you need fish and wool to move on to the next area you're at. First, you would probably start chopping down some wood and use that wood to build a fishery building that would allow one of your other pupils to start fishing, while you then collected more wood to build a building that allows you to like shear sheep, and then you would have one of your pupils start collecting wool. And also, when you move on to a new area, you can bring a limited amount of your supplies with you, so you can't just stockpile a ridiculous amount of things for the future, but you can kind of prepare yourself and bring a decent amount of stuff with you. While doing all of this though, you need to worry about your food. You start out with large amounts of rations, but every turn all of your pupils eat 6 food each, so while juggling trying to get all of the resources you need, you also need to make sure you're picking raw food, or even better, getting things like grain and using it in a bakery, or building a building to cook meat and fish that your other pupils get. And so another huge aspect of this game is that each pupil is unique. There's a giant skill tree that your pupils go through depending on what they're doing more of. So if you have one of your pupils the main builder of the group, he will start to gain XP towards becoming a builder, and then later down the line he could become an engineer or an architect. And for most of these paths you can create buildings that will allow them to gain XP to bring them further on that skill tree. So for if you wanted someone like a fruit gatherer, you can't just have them picking, the base fruit over and over and over. You need to eventually make a dedicated building for them that will make them better and level up. And I really like this because it makes you want to specialize each of your units, and it makes them more individual from each other instead of just like having a bunch of workers that you can kind of just mindlessly tell, them all to do similar things. Also, at least in the first tribe, each of your pupils get one random positive and one random negative effect that makes each game feel a little bit different as well. And so overall, you just build up the area and gain the resources you need and then move on to the next area, but the game is actually pretty difficult. I didn't get a chance to try it out, but the devs did say that they were adding something at launch that would allow you to change some of the modifiers to make the game easier or harder. So as an example, you could make it where your pupils don't eat that 6 food each per turn to make it a little bit more forgiving if you're having a harder time. There is also a campaign which kind of serves as a tutorial with like 5 missions and has a bunch of lore, though I will say when I was playing them, they were a little bit on the glitchy side. I was soft locked twice out of one of the missions. The game itself, just like the main game mode, it has a good tutorial to teach you the game, and I know that they're working to improve the missions themselves, but when I played them, they were a little bit bugged, but it is nice to know that you can just jump straight into the game, and you'll have to, put in a lot of effort and do a lot of reading and, kind of deductive reasoning, but there is a tutorial in the main game, so, even if the campaign missions are a little bit glitchy, you can still play the main part of the game, and I know that they're working to improve that, and they've already made it a lot better than when I first started playing. The only other big complaint I have with the game is that sometimes it's really hard to see where your units or buildings are. The game is really, really pretty and it has a really unique art style, but sometimes it can be a little visually cluttered, so it would be pretty cool if they added an option that like super highlighted your units and buildings and just made it super, super clear and overly obvious because, sometimes I kind of got lost with where my units are or was having a hard time, clicking them. And another really small complaint I have with the game is it was translated into English, and it's not bad at all, but sometimes the wording of things are a little bit peculiar and like maybe not the best way you could explain things, but it's nothing too bad and it doesn't really take away from the game, just, that obviously, if they have room to improve, that's one of the areas they could do that. And you can unlock new tribes and effects for your units by doing certain things in the game and getting wins, so that will keep you playing, but overall this is one of those games that honestly I don't think needs the biggest and best progression system in the world. And if you've watched any of my roguelite or roguelike reviews, you know that I always talk about how the progression system is super, super important, but honestly the gameplay in this is really unique and solid, and I could definitely see someone playing this game a large amount of time simply for the fun of it, since every run is different in what strategies you want to take, because you're going to need different resources to get to different areas. You're going to have different, effects on your pupils that will make you play a little bit differently. And so I'm just overall really happy that I took the time to review As Far As The Eye, because like I said earlier, I love playing roguelites and roguelikes that take a pre-existing genre that I'm a fan of and just make it a whole nother genre by adding all of these roguelike elements. So if you're a fan of 4X games like Civ and you're a fan of roguelikes, this is 110% up your alley, and I would highly recommend checking it out. And if you have played As Far As The Eye, or just from watching gameplay, I would love to know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. I love having conversations with you guys. And if you enjoyed this video, then consider leaving a like down below and subscribing to see more gaming reviews. I make 2 to 3 reviews a week just on a wide variety of games, and roguelites and roguelikes are easily one of my favorite genres, and I believe the next 3 reviews that are coming up that I'm going to be making are all roguelites or roguelikes, and that's including Spelunky 2, which I'm super excited about. So subscribe to see some of those reviews when they come out, and ring that bell like all the big boy YouTubers say. And also, if you can't get enough of me, I do have a podcast called Media Crash, where every episode we talk about a different genre of games or movies, so check that out if you are interested. And if you guys are going to try grinding out some games of As Far As The Eye, I wish you the best. See you guys next time.